All right. I guess I'm the host, Lou, because I'm interviewing you about your brand new book, The Trump Century. I believe it's a pro-Trump book. I'm not sure, but and then we have all these questions because we're at Premier Collectibles. Questions from people who are here sending in questions, and that'll be exciting. I wanted to bring up a funny story. Do you remember, Lou? Because Lou, you're one of my favorite people at Fox. Obviously, people don't understand our relationship. They think it's strange.
It's a beautiful relationship.
It is because I think there are people that are kind of like terrified of you, but we get I remember whenever I go like, hey, can I get Lou to hand me rubber animals? And no one will ask you. They won't ask you. So we have to like find you and go into your office and ask because they think you're going to say no.
The truth is, doing your show over all those years was one of the highlights of my career. I'm serious about it. It was great fun. It was great. It was great television. You're an amazing wit and performer, and an all-time great guy. So,
yeah. Do you remember the email that you sent me? It was one of the most important emails I received, having to do with I think it was the 2016 election. Do you remember it when you said, "What's wrong with you?" I think that's what your email said.
I did say that.
Yes. Yeah, it was because I was kind of in my own bubble. I wasn't listening to my family, and it's like it was like you and maybe two other people were like, they would go like, "What's your problem?" Anyway. So enough about me and you. Let's talk about the book. I have a bunch of questions here. So how do you think Trump has, in your book, you argue that he's changed the course of history. What would be the most important ways?
I believe that the most important way is that he stopped first the decline of the United States. Mm-hmm. A lot of people don't realize, even those who have experienced it, working men and women in this country, the middle class, those who aspire to it, until President Trump was elected, we had experienced 2 decades of stagnant wages for the middle class. Now, it is my firm belief that the middle class is the foundation of this country. It's what it is. It's where the American dream resides, and it is the goal of everyone who is not yet in the middle class to reach it. And everyone in the middle class lays a foundation for the next generation to do even greater things than their parents. So the middle class to me is very important. And for 20 years, they were badly treated by president after president. And I believe the most important thing the president did, certainly initially, was to halt the decline and to reawaken the American dream and those aspirations of all Americans to do better, to do more.
Mm-hmm. And there are things that initially that he brought up that you talk about in the book that were openly mocked, even by people like me. I know it's hard to believe, but I was wrong on certain things. For example, when you talk about America First, that was open in the media, especially people mock that as somehow like it's a nationalistic rube would only think like that, and you must be a bigot. And it turns out that like when you look at it, America First just means the president's being kind of your agent. He's your lawyer on your behalf. Everybody wants to be first. So why I guess my point is, why do we mock this idea?
I think the left mocked it because it was convenient. They could attach the expression racist because in the 1930s, America First was an isolationist movement, and they sort of they stole the words, the phrase, and he reclaimed it.
Right.
He is, and every American now knows, whether they're for him or against him, they know what America First means. It means things like, yes, we're going to put our people first. We're going to educate our people first. And we are not going to be sending our troops off to these endless wars. We're going to put America first. Mm-hmm. And you want to go to Syria, you want to go to Libya, Well, to NATO, please, please go ahead, but don't expect us to pay for it, and don't expect our blood to be dripping on those sands in northern Libya.
This sounds a lot like the Dobbs century to me. I think you should have called the book the Dobbs century. All right, I'm gonna pick some silly questions from the viewers and some serious ones, but I want to start with the first silly one, which is not really silly because I love cars. What is your favorite car? Are you a car guy, and is there a specific favorite car?
Yeah, my favorite car happens to be a truck.
Mm.
Guys, I love pickups. I love, and I have to say, I love Ford pickups. But I have Chevrolet. I've got a 1995 Chevrolet on the that I treasure, and it's right now got a bad flywheel. But anyway,
who doesn't?
Car is a pickup, for crying out loud.
So, you have a Ford pickup because you just mentioned a farm. Do you live on a horse farm?
I do.
Yeah. Do. What's that like? Do you ride a lot of horses? I don't know anything about horses. They frighten me.
Well, that's probably a wise thing until you get to know them for a little.
Yes.
The fact is, my wife and I gave up riding a little while, a few years ago, because we just, we reached an age where there's an old saying, there isn't a horse that can't be rode or a cowboy who can't be throwed. At my age, if I get throwed, it takes me a lot longer to get down the old trail. We decided to be the better part of valor to just simply feed them, and work with them and train them and sell them.
Oh, okay. So you actually sell these horses. Yes. That's pretty cool. That's a nice little side job there, Lou. Selling horses.
We've done it. Deb and I have been breeding horses for almost 40 years. So yeah, we love it.
Would you ever sell a horse to me, or would you look at me and go, nope, not a chance?
I agree. We'd have to talk a lot. I mean, it's not just, I give you an enormous discount, but the reality is a horse is a special animal, and it requires a lot of knowledge to ride. It's, none that you couldn't pick up quickly. I'm not suggesting that, but it's not something that would be pleasant for you.
How about, okay, do you have any connections with those little mini horses, like a horse that I could have in my apartment?
No, we have no connections whatsoever. Our horses go about 16 to 17 hands. They're big.
Wow, that's a lot. It's like a German rock band. It's a lot of hands. I don't know why I thought that, but because they're all named Hands. Okay, here's a serious question from Mark from Brighton, Michigan. I should say, by the car question was from Isaac in Mesa, Arizona. So Mark is asking, have your political views changed over the years? If so, what or who changed them? That's a good question, because I really didn't get to know you until Fox, but I remember seeing you. Were you always this Dobbs, or were you a different Dobbs?
I was politically a different, well, actually I was the same, but I just had a different view on things. I was a Republican early on, after, sort of coming to my senses in my mid to late 20s. But the truth is, I became a Republican, and then I really got so I couldn't stand the Republican Party. Someone, not me, famously said, I didn't leave the party, it left me. I'm very disappointed with the George W. Bush administration. I became an independent, a conservative all the time, but certainly wanting no part at that particular moment in my life of the Republican Party.
Interesting. So what would you, what?
Donald Trump changed all of that.
Well, what's interesting, I always say about Trump is that you get somebody who, like, everybody expects the radical to be on the left, the person that comes in and blows things apart and shakes the box. Warren Beatty did a movie called Bulworth, where he was like this guy, liberal, who could rap, and it was really bad. I think people on the left are very resentful that the radical who blew up the party is actually on the Republican side, and he isn't really a Republican. I mean, it's like actually, this leads me to a question about Trump. Are there things about Trump that you disagree with?
There are a few, but they don't get as much attention in my mind as all the things we do agree with.
Right.
I mean, there are plenty of people who have arguments with this president. I certainly don't need to join that group of people.
Yeah.
Because it's a full-time occupation for them.
Right.
He has done more for this country. And to talk about side issues with him is just to marginalize a great, great president. And a man who doesn't need any distractions from the job at hand, which is to save the republic. And it's no less a job than that. So yeah, there's things at the margin I disagree with him. Certainly nothing at the center and of a weighty nature.
Yeah, the point you make is the one that I make, but I make it in a kind of a sloppier way, which is when people do ask me, like, why don't you ever criticize Trump? It's like you got that covered. It's like I'm like it's we get it. You don't like his personality. I always ask them to list the things, and the things are always the same. It's like if they don't like him, but if you ask them about the deeds, it's like, so wait, you didn't like the prison reform thing, and then you find out that they didn't really know about it. And you find out that their knowledge of what he's been doing is about that deep, but they can't stand him. It's an emotional, and I have to say that even when I knew him, I had an emotional reaction when he was running. And I think once you notice you're having an emotional reaction, that's the first step to kind of disowning that, like to get away from it, and then being able to look at, okay, what is he doing? Like this critical race theory thing, people don't understand. That's a big deal. If he just did that one thing, I would have voted for him. That one thing.
For him to talk about the importance of language.
Yes.
If this were Obama, we'd be getting lectures on language. If this were Bill Clinton, he'd be going through the etymology of the word critical, parsing elements.
Yeah.
This president says, language is so important. I'm not going to permit this kind of fraudulent initiative to be carried through the federal government and to distract from the job at hand for 3 million federal workers, and now with this executive order today, contractors.
Amazing.
It is, and he's exactly right. He does it time and time again. He makes a decision, he chooses, and I will guarantee you, if he's not always right, he's right more often than any president I have ever seen.
This was a really interesting decision, because you could argue that of all the psychological issues that we're seeing played out on the street have their origins in these academic poisonous ideologies, and critical race theory is a poisonous ideology. And then what he does is he does this other thing where he says he wants to start a patriotic education, kind of like you want to learn why America is great. And of course that, just like America First, can be open to mockery, because that type of persona has always been mocked by pop culture. The patriotic person, that is, but it's actually like, if you don't understand your country, there's no future. What's going to happen?
The left, the intelligentsia, they always want to condescend to conservatives in particular, but Republicans generally. And because they think of them as either unintelligent or anti-intelligence,
right?
And certainly anti-intellectual. The reality is this president has taken the time to understand all of these issues. In most cases, he understands them better than the pedagogues in upper levels of higher education. He is really remarkable in it. He's thoughtful. He is not reflexive. But otherwise, the first thing would say, Mr. President, don't take on critical race theory. You need every race's vote.
Right.
But he is not a man who is going to fall prey to the nonsense from the left that if you take a position that is not consonant with the orthodoxies and the establishment. Therefore, you must, well, there must be something wrong with you and deficient. He's inverted all of that.
Right.
He also established that you can be a Republican, you can be conservative, and by God, it doesn't. And by the way, you can love America. And you know what? You can still use your critical judgment.
Yeah.
He's a man more critical than any other candidate among 17 when he was running for the nomination in 2016.
True. Yeah.
He is more critical of America today than Joe Biden.
Yeah.
Joe Biden hate his guts, but that isn't the same thing.
Yeah.
And Kamala Harris can blather all she wants to about the idea that we need to reimagine policing. Well, why do we need to do that? Don't we just have to reimagine how police officers treat certain people at certain times? And do you think it's a problem, or do you think it's a problem that should be fixed? They think it's just a problem. They're not fixing it. We're watching recruiting for policemen nosedive. We're watching retirements skyrocket. This is not the answer to our problems, if the limited number of problems we have with law enforcement.
Yeah, you know, what's interesting too, just, you know, in the critical race theory part, is like, if Trump is actually doing something not for Republicans, but also for Democrats because there are so many Democrats, especially in academia, that hate that theory, but they don't have anybody who's actually going to say it. So I was listening to one guy who's a former professor of evolutionary biology, I think, and he was like,
one of my favorite subjects.
Exactly. I think about it constantly. He was like, he doesn't like Trump, but he goes, but it's Trump who's doing the things that no one else will do, and I have to support that. It's like, and he goes, I'm actually thinking of things that I never thought about doing, which he was implying voting for Trump, because of the critical race theory move, and it was like that. Maybe it takes this kind of person to make these decisions. And so what I'm thinking is Trump actually going to be able to kind of split the Democrat Party from the hard left? Because the hard left is a small nut, but they're terrified of it. They're terrified of the people on the street. They conflate rioters with voters, and maybe some of them, but I don't know. So if he can actually get the Democrats to like grow something, stones, to actually to say, yeah, they might be able to beat the problems in their own party. Am I making any sense? I'm drooling, but am I making sense?
No, I think you are, and I think you're right. And you're saying a couple of things I really hadn't thought about. This president is the disruptor.
Yeah.
But certainly more than that, it goes to, he is a provocateur.
Yeah.
For the left, because I don't think much about the left or think
right.
of the left. So you're taking me in a different direction. But the truth of the matter is, this president is purposely a provocateur, and he really enjoys that role. You can tell he delights in the combat, whether it's intellectual combat, whether it's verbal combat, whether it's the rough and tumble of the campaign trail.
Yeah.
He loves it. And the more these people on the left, the radicals, which now comprises, it seems, most of the Democratic Party, the more they want to spew venom and blather and nonsense, the more he comes back to be rational and to be straightforward. Because to go to your point, and this, I mean, and you're exactly right, this man isn't just a Republican. In no way is he that. So
he's not an ideologue.
Yeah.
I don't think he's the least ideological politician I think I've seen. His ideology would be pro-America. That would be, if you could say, but that shouldn't be an ideology. That should just be your natural resting place. You should be always pro-America. I mean, you don't have to like America, but I'm just saying, if you're a politician in America, you should be proud of the place. You know, you're successful. But he's not. I never see him as right or left. I just see him as kind of this instinctual, his own kind of thinker, and that's and a provocateur is a good way of putting it.
Yeah, he is all of that and much, much more. He's never given credit. Do you notice? He's never given credit for being a very bright fellow. I love his expression of himself. He referred to himself as a stable genius,
Right.
which set people off.
Exactly. Yes. He understands. It's amazing. But it's amazing that, and I state this all the time, and it helps me react when I will get out of my own way, is that almost everything that people are upset with is his words, not his deeds. So it's like it is a constant, like it's like when you have a conversation with somebody, I'll use a website. There's a media website, won't mention it. Every single article is about what he says, not what he does. And if you took away all the articles about what he says, they have nothing there because they won't cover his deeds. I think that's interesting. You know?
Yeah, it is. And what he says, going to your point earlier, when you were talking about people say predictable things when they start talking about him and they oppose him, they almost without exception say, well, you know, I don't like his tweeting.
Yes. Yes.
I can't stand his tweeting.
Mm-hmm.
It'd be like someone in 1938 saying, you know, Roosevelt has done a lot for the country, but he's an awful radio.
Yeah.
I really resent the fact that, you know, he keeps upstaging the New York Times and the Washington Post. It's just not done, you know.
Right. Exactly. That's exactly right. Yeah.
He speaks truth to millions, tens of millions of Americans. I think every day. There is more access to him than any president. He has had more press conferences than Bush and Obama combined, and there is a give and take. What the press they really don't like about him is that he does give every bit as good as he take, and then some.
Yeah, I do. I always give like a choice to somebody because I think that the people that hate Trump for what he says or his personality are actually pretty selfish, in the sense that they would prefer a charming congenial politician who sends people to war over a guy who's essentially a pacifist but keeps you up at night because of his tweets or his. So you're like the people that actually, I can't get him out, put Biden in and go, okay, so you just want the nice guy who sends troops to die over the obnoxious guy who is stingy with blood and treasure. So it's actually the person that's upset is a really selfish jerk.
Yeah, it's to this president. I'm a product of the 60s, obviously.
I can tell.
It's amazing. And the fact of the matter is, again, that if this were 1968 and this were the election, people would be going crazy. We've got a president who's anti-military industrial complex.
Yeah.
Bring the troops home. He doesn't. Right. You know, he is governing from the center of the country, and people don't even realize it.
That's it. That's what it is.
And they want to put him in these little boxes, and they want to have labels for him. And you know, the folks in the White House press corps, which are a group of folks all unto themselves.
Right.
And my candid description here. They really cannot concede that they really don't have the intellectual firepower or knowledge base to really play with the president of the United States. If they were anything other than sullen and nasty folks, they wouldn't have much to say to the president.
Yeah.
It's really just silly to watch, and it's disrespectful, and it also adds an odor. Welcome anywhere, let alone in the White House.
Yeah, I really do enjoy watching Kayleigh come into her own. I mean, I knew her. I don't know if you know her, but we knew her from back at Fox. And in terms of being able to handle the White House press corps with information that, like, she comes prepared, and I think it's from working at CNN where she was always outnumbered, that has made her really good with these people. And it's like she treats them like students in a classroom who didn't do their homework, and it's amazing, you know.
It's fun to watch her, as you say, grow. She is I love the Harvard we the Harvard law student in her, that she comes prepared and briefed and ready. Uh,
Yeah.
and she does it so with such equanimity
Hmm.
and pizzazz that it's fun to watch.
Yeah. All right. I'm going to go to a question from Linda from Marshfield, Missouri, and it's about the press. How can we get? We could talk 10 hours on this one. How can we get factual news out to United States citizens? Of course, Fox News is there, but this is an interesting question because I think it's getting harder and harder every day. Even, but the question's for you.
Well, the question's for me, but I'd be interested to hear what you were about to say.
Mhm.
It's an important question. I'd like to get your perspective, and then I'll give mine.
All right. Okay. So I am scared of how I'm being manipulated even when I'm on social media to be that there are these two sides going like this, and that in fact most of America is kind of in agreement with law and order, taking home the money that they make, family is good, all that stuff is like all the kind of stuff that we know is good. We have 340 million Americans. I would say 339.5 would agree with almost everything. But social media is built on clicks, and you get clicks through conflict. So we have these algorithms that are just that are making us angry all the time. You're not angry because you're not on social media, but I find myself, if I go to Twitter before I go to bed, I'm angry. And I think what scares me about the news, it's about how the stories are manufactured to create discontent. So you could look at any kind of police action, and it's shaped a specific way to create unrest. When in fact, when you step back, you find these 50 odd police incidents are so different. They have so many different variables, but you never hear about the variables. They're all treated the same because they create a discontent, which drives up the audience, so that everybody wants everybody's fighting with each other. And I think that's out of control. That's my feeling.
Well, I understand your feeling. I happen to be one of those guys. I'm not into these contretemps and nasty exchanges on Twitter. They're meaningless.
Yeah.
What I get a great kick out of are watching the rationalists among the tweeters.
Yeah.
With facts, organize their thoughts, and put it in 140 characters, and bestow knowledge upon some poor ignorant fool who decided to say something unsupportable or simply uncivil.
Mm-hmm.
It's, as an example, and I'll only use one, Rick Grinnell.
Mm-hmm. Very good.
Has been absolutely terrific, and he sets the record straight with every tweet, it seems.
Yeah.
At least the ones I notice. That's perfect usage of the medium.
Yeah.
Social media. So
yeah, I have to keep, you know what, I'm not plugging this book enough. It's The Trump Century. I mean, that's why we're here. And if you haven't ordered this book, you're not, in my book, you're just not an American. I probably shouldn't say that because I'm kidding, but maybe I'm not kidding. You'll never know because I will never tell you the truth about that. Trump Century. So here's another question. During President Trump's second term, okay. Before I get, this is from Rebecca Kramer in Florence, Mississippi. How do you feel the odds are for the reelection first? And then she wants to know the greatest challenge that he will face. But I want to ask you, if you were a betting person, where do you see this going right now, the Biden-Trump?
I'm going to give you a straightforward, honest answer, whether irrespective of the reactions. I cannot imagine the American people putting a man in office who cannot work 5 straight days, who stays at home and does not engage, who doesn't put himself, we were talking about the White House press corps, the political press, even as benign a group as they are,
right?
He avoids them and
Yeah.
will admit an exchange. That tells me terrible things, and I think it does most Americans. Americans aren't fools. They're wondering why the President of the United States is engaged every day, whether it's on Twitter, whether it's before the television cameras, or whether it's on his plane headed to a rally and talking with thousands of his supporters.
Mm-hmm.
By the way, it's fascinating to look at those pictures of every arena, every hangar, every place he goes. There are throngs of
Right.
patriotic signs everywhere. And wherever Joe Biden has gone, there is always some sort of excuse.
Mm-hmm.
In social distancing circles for questions and answers. And they begin every question to Biden, Mr. Vice President. Well, no, he's not Mr. Vice President. He used to be Vice President. And they refer to the President of the United States as Donald Trump. Have you ever noticed?
Yeah. I do that sometimes too, because you knew him as that before he was president. And sometimes I forget that that he's president. And actually, you've talked to him, and I've talked to him. You've talked to him probably more. I forget when I'm talking to him that he's the president of the United States, because he talks to you like a real person. So it's like he was talking to me. He had the Italian prime minister in, and he was like, "Going, did you watch? We're having." He was laughing at how the media was asking him questions that were totally unrelated to why the Italian prime minister was there. This has got to be a couple years ago, but it was like he was talking to me like, I said this once, that he's like America's cab driver. He's reflects everybody's gut level beliefs and they can smell BS a mile away. Like a cab driver always has an opinion, knows what's going on. But I want to ask you, next week, the debates. How do you see the debates unfolding?
I have to. I think one of the funniest lines the president has come up with recently. He comes up with a lot of them. But when he started talking about Joe Biden getting a shot of something in the ass to get him through it, with lucidity and clarity and energy.
Yeah.
I thought that was hilarious. At the same time, I thought maybe drug testing for presidents might not be a bad idea.
I'm, I'll just tell you, I'm against all drug testing, Lou. Just on a personal matter and self-preservation. We don't want to get into the drug testing thing. Let me put this stuff away. I wonder. I think I can't remember who said this on the 5. It might have been Marie Harf said that I was making a mistake by setting expectations so low, and I think she might be right about that. Like I was making jokes about, Joe Biden, he'll show up with his robe open, and it's like, when you have expectations so low, he's going to win. And it's like that is a good point. Are we in danger of underestimating? That's a great word. I'm underestimating Joe Biden.
I don't think so. We, in part because we know what the national left-wing media will do, no matter whether or not he were to upchuck on the podium. Mm-hmm. It would have been a pristine performance by a man of inordinate personality and genius, in their view. So I don't think that our expectations are going to matter much. I do think it will matter greatly that the president perform as he always does, as who he is. This is all on Biden.
Yeah.
The president has a record. Nobody, even the national left-wing media, they can ignore it. They can't really distort it sufficiently for American voters to ignore what this man has achieved. Mm-hmm. It's unparalleled.
Yeah. But they always look at it as it's been an unparalleled hell. I talked about it I don't know, last week, and I'm going to do it on my show. The way they imagine a dystopian nightmare happening every day, but it never materializes. But then they create it. So it's like they're promising Trump has creating a dystopian nightmare while they're allowing it to occur in every one of their cities. So they're denying what's in your eye line as happening, which might happen tonight again, while predicting a fake thing happening. The contrast to me is it's delusional. It's deranged,
It is truly us. We are in the grip of the left in this country is in the grip of some form of psychosis.
Yeah.
I can tell you how to label it. But because you're exactly right, the left has decided to employ the tactics of street violence. They're riots. The national left-wing media then in turns calls that a peaceful protest.
Yep.
Nancy Pelosi starts talking about the president as a stormtrooper.
Yeah.
It's a Orwellian, upside down, inverted world of contrast between reality and projection.
Yeah.
The left, I don't know what the answer is, but I don't know how they can possibly think they can get away with this.
And you know what? It's go ahead.
All of this, the attempts to intimidate voters,
right?
Intimidate the people who live in suburbs, to intimidate Americans. And I understand it's a different time than the great generation of World War II, for example. But this is a country of pretty hardy folks. Daffodils, buttercups exist, but they're at the side of the road. They're not in the main lane.
No, it is, and I think the Democrats have to realize that they're making a deal with the devil by being silent with this modern progressive movement, because they're that old line that the crocodile inevitably eats you last. You know, it's like you think that if I just agree with these woke radicals, they're not going to come for me. No, they are. They just haven't got to you yet. That's why you're seeing a lot of disillusioned liberals moving away from moving away from the Democrats for purely, because they realize they're not going to be protected. Hey, before I forget, because we're almost out of time. Where did this? You gave me this shirt. Can people get this shirt?
Oh, absolutely. I'm so glad you asked. By the way, the same place they can get this book as well.
There you go. Get the book. Get the book and the shirt. But if you can't get the shirt, get the book.
Well, I don't see why anyone should limit themselves. Shop.com.
Yeah. No, it's a great shirt. I gave the white one to my brother-in-law who was visiting in town and made his day. But the one question that Rebecca asked, and I cut it off because I started talking about the debate. What's the greatest challenge Trump faces if he's reelected?
If he's reelected, is bringing the country together.
Yeah.
Because he must, and to govern this country as he has, it has had. I just cannot believe people will not credit him for leading this country as he has. He's a great leader. He has made extraordinary choices and made sound judgments and great lasting decisions. And he also, by the way, just to make a point of it, he did get nominated for 2 Nobel Peace Prizes for 2 separate achievements of the presidency. So I think he has some substantive records to bring to the attention of the American people in that debate. I think that actually Joe Biden should salute him when he walks into the auditorium if they happen to be there together.
I love the Nobel Prize nominations because now you have an entire group of people saying that peace deals aren't really peace deals and that this really isn't anything. But and to think of all those stuffed shirt establishment types like Hillary and John Kerry not being able to accomplish what this Jared Kushner kid did. Like that was, remember the joke about Jared Kushner was they're sending a kid from the children's table to go, work on a peace deal, but they didn't realize he's a smart dude. And also he's got smart people working with him and they know what they're doing. And you kind of know they're smart because they're pretty freaking rich. And I mean, I'm sorry, that's a pretty good measure. The credentials are okay, being a PhD, but if you look at the rich people, they're pretty smart. I don't know a dumb rich person. I won't go into. Let's not list them because we're getting close. Oh, this is a good question.
This doesn't sound like a populist rant.
Yes.
I have to tell you, I have I was raised a poor country boy. I'm kind of partial to folks who just get lucky when they think.
Right.
It's amazing how poor people and rich people alike can do the same thing.
That is true. That is true. But you know what's funny too about Trump? So he was like one of the most frequently mentioned pop culture icons in rap music. Like there are hundreds of songs in which he's mentioned. And there's this idea that somehow he's aloof. He is the most streetwise politician we probably ever had, and he's a billionaire. And I love bringing that up because he's, you know, you have Joe Biden pretending to be blue collar Joe. He ain't blue collar Joe just because he takes a train to his beach house. That doesn't make him, you know. But then there's Trump, who's like, he knows how to talk to construction workers, you know. And I think he's going to get a higher, a higher number among the African American vote. They keep saying that he's a bigot, but I think they actually might. I mean, I hate looking at people as groups because we're now being taught to do that. But because we separated everybody into numbers or into groups. But I think he's going to surprise, and he's probably going to get a higher portion than any Republican in history. That's my guess, but I don't know.
I would guess the same, because I think the Black community in this country has seen what Barack Obama did for them, and they've experienced what President Trump has done for them. The lowest unemployment rates in history. He is funding historically Black colleges permanently. The list goes on. Social, you know, all of these social justice warriors out there.
Yeah.
Well, you know what? They take a back seat to this administration because this president has done more for reforming the justice system than anyone. He has a record that is an answer to nearly every one of those stupid assertions from the left. They conjure this stuff up because his record in a time of normalcy in the Fourth Estate, you know, it would be inescapable. But instead, the Fourth Estate has chosen to be a fifth column for the left and for the deep state.
Nice. I like how you did that. Good turn of phrase. Very impressive. All right, we're going to wrap this thing up. You know, this is Lou Dobbs. You got to buy Lou Dobbs' book. Okay, so this is the biggest last question. It's a softball question. It's from Kevin in Livingston, Montana. It was actually the first question that I received, but I skipped over it. But then I thought, no, this is a really good question. What do you think is President Trump's greatest achievement? It's a softball question. I give it to you to hit out of the park.
His greatest achievement, in my view, is stopping the decline of this country. As I said, his greatest challenge is to heal the country and unite it. But that's going to take a lot of effort from a lot of people, not just the president. But his greatest achievement is maintaining his strength and resolve through all of the challenges. No president since Abraham Lincoln has been challenged and beaten and viciously attacked and unfairly just assaulted, not just by the left-wing media, but they've tried to overthrow his presidency. And there will be an accounting. I don't know when it will come. I hope soon, but his greatest achievement is persevering and succeeding all the while and leading.
I'm going to give you what I think is the best achievement, because it's something that I've had to deal with all my life, which is media bias. And no one ever really, I mean, they casually would talk about it, but just coming up with the phrase fake news became probably one of the most vital phrases since tear down the wall, because it did tear down a wall. Now it's like, this is a power base, this media that controls everything that we see. And he said it's fake. And it's like, and it's kind of, I've been saying that for years, but I'm not in the White House. To have the president do this is a big deal. That's my
I concur. And it's not only the fake news, it is the massive corporate power that is in charge of that fake news.
Yeah.
By the way, their orders to be what they are in that briefing room come directly from those corporate masters. And by the way, the president is very interested in antitrust actions and ending predatory behavior of corporations out in Silicon Valley. And all I can say is yeehaw.
Yeah, it's good. It's especially as the virtue signaling and the algorithms come together with these modern graduates. They're coming for us. All right, Lou, the Trump century. Everybody buy it. Premier signatures. They get signed books. You get an autographed copy. How great is that? Huh? I've got 17. You know, because I cry, I weep when I'm reading it. And I have to push the book aside and get another book, and then I start weeping again from the moving prose. Any final thoughts? You good, Lou?
Yes, I've got a few, and I first of all, I just want to say thank you to you, because you're extraordinarily generous to take up an evening with us here on this Zoom streaming. I guess I would just close by saying the reason it's the Trump century in large measure is because the president has established a record that no one thought possible when he was running.
Mm-hmm.
Once he was elected, they thought it was impossible that he could possibly lead us to peace in the Middle East, bring troops, create 3% GDP growth, and at the same time, take a country that was alienated already, polarized already, and begin to make American lives better. And the great thing is he focused on those who, in my opinion, who needed a change of environment and atmosphere. He provided it, whether it be for those in low-income neighborhoods, whether it be for the Black community in inner cities, whether it be for Hispanics, whether it be for white people who are had no jobs, wanted to be part of the middle class. He's made it possible for all of them to do better, to prosper, and this ugly China virus that Xi Jinping unleashed on an unsuspecting world, there will be a special place in hell for committing even the equivalency of murder. It will be even better if there is an accounting for China, the Communist Party, and Xi Jinping in this light. He has had to maneuver us through all of these circumstances and all of these unexpected disasters. We kid about 2020, but 2020 has been this president's life since the day he was inaugurated.
Right.
Whether it be the special counsel investigations, and he is the only one who's emerged from all of those assaults as certifiably the only one who isn't politically corrupt, the only one who has not been on the take and aligned with the deep state and with Russia or China, certainly. It's a I think there's a glorious awakening awaiting us on November 3rd. And
well, we shall see. Mr. Dobbs. All right, Lou, I shall see you when I see you. Have a great night. That was a blast.
Well, you're great again, and I thank you so much, my friend. I appreciate it. Greg Gutfeld.
Take care, buddy. I'll see you.
You too, partner.